Less than 1% of IRS disputes ever go to trial, but understanding the judicial options available to you changes the entire dynamic of your negotiations with the IRS. Knowledge of your rights is leverage, even if you never have to use them. I'm Andrew Bosserman. I'm an IRS defense attorney and former IRS agent. Chapter 7 of my book, The IRS Survival Guide, covers the courts: tax court, district court, and the court of federal claims, plus the payment arrangements that can protect you when you're unable to pay in full. So my last video, which went over chapter 6 of my book, talked about administrative ways to fight back against the IRS. And this oftentimes involves manager conferences and also going to IRS Appeals, which is an independent body within the IRS that tries to settle cases before they go to court. But if you've exhausted those remedies and your administrative options fail, you have 3 judicial options to take your IRS dispute to the courts. The first and most common option is U.S. tax court. And this is the most taxpayer-friendly option because you can file a petition to get to tax court without paying the disputed tax first. So this is different than the other 2 courts. The tax court judges specialize exclusively in tax law, and the way you get to tax court is you have to wait to receive, generally, a 90-day letter, also called a notice of deficiency, and that triggers your right to file here. But the important thing to remember about U.S. tax court is you don't have to pay the tax before you file suit. So if the IRS is saying you owe $500,000, you don't have to pay a single penny of that to contest that amount in U.S. tax court. And we'll see that's different than the other 2 options. So your second option is U.S. district court. And there are district courts across the country. However, U.S. district court requires full payment of the tax first, and then you file a lawsuit requesting a refund. You do have the option for a jury trial here, which may be advantageous in certain cases, and you can also file the suit at your local district court that's closest to you in your state. Your final option to go to court is the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. This also requires full payment upfront, so if you owe $500,000, you have to pay that $500,000 and then sue for a refund. The U.S. Court of Federal Claims is based in Washington, D.C., and your choice of district court and federal claims, there's a number of different issues depending on where you live, your issue. Some certain courts might have better precedent for your cases based on the legal issues. But in practice, tax court is where most tax cases end up, generally because you don't have to pay first. But say you exhaust your judicial options and the IRS is right, or at least the courts say they are, and you do owe money, but you can't pay it all now. What are your options? So the first option is an installment agreement or a payment plan. You pay your tax debt in monthly installments. Penalties and interest continue to accrue. Penalties are reduced slightly, but collection actions stop. And the IRS generally gives you 7-ish years to pay off, or sometimes it's shorter depending on how long the statute of limitations is, because the IRS generally has 10 years to collect the tax debt from you, although some actions can extend that period. If you can't pay the full balance off before that 10-year collection statute expires, the IRS may accept lower monthly payments, and this is called a partial pay installment agreement. You have to disclose your financials, things like all your assets, your debts, your monthly income, and household expenses. But based on that calculation, if you can't afford to pay the full balance off, the IRS will accept lower payments based on their affordability calculations, and any remaining amounts when that statute of limitations expires will be written off by the IRS. Also, if you literally cannot pay due to hardship or other reasons, you can request currently not collectible status. And this is where the IRS temporarily suspends collection, but the debt remains and will continue to accrue penalties and interest. If you're in this status, the IRS generally will check into your situation every year or every few years and may resume collections if your financial situation increased. But if you're in a hardship, this is a great way to just temporarily stop any liens, levies, garnishments, typical IRS collection action. And finally, there's the offer in compromise program. And this is paying a lump sum less than what you owe. However, it's not like a lot of people think, like a negotiation. There's strict qualifications. You have to disclose all of your financials to the IRS, everything you own, all your debts, your income and household expenses. This is not for everyone, although sometimes you may hear commercials or other people talk about it. Settle your tax debt for less than you owe. And that's true, but there is strict requirements. It's a very formulaic process and less of a negotiation than a lot of people think. And approval rates are very low, especially if you don't use a professional to help you. So this is not for everyone. I always analyze this option whenever someone comes to me with tax debt, but I find very few people are true candidates for offering compromise unless they meet a very specific set of criteria. So finally, another option that comes up, which we haven't talked about yet, is bankruptcy. And can you discharge tax debt in bankruptcy? The answer is sometimes, but there are strict conditions and requirements. This isn't an exhaustive list, but generally for income taxes to be dischargeable in bankruptcy, the tax return must have been due at least 3 years ago, the return must have been filed at least 2 years ago, and the tax must have been assessed at least 240 days ago. So if you meet those requirements, and there are others, but that's just a general timing, then your taxes may be dischargeable in bankruptcy. But oftentimes bankruptcy is a last resort and its interaction with tax law can be complex. So if you're considering it, you generally want to consult both a tax attorney and a bankruptcy attorney to make sure that your federal income taxes can get discharged in bankruptcy. So before you go, if you found this video helpful, I want to make sure you have everything you need to protect yourself from the IRS. So I'm giving away a free PDF copy of my book, The IRS Survival Guide, at theirssurvivalguide.com. So head there now, grab your copy, and arm yourself with every strategy in the book. Again, the website is theirssurvivalguide.com, completely free, no strings attached. Don't wait until the IRS comes knocking. Get prepared today. So if this video helped you, please subscribe and share it with a business owner you know who needs to hear this. And I'll see you in the next video.